My son called me. I'm getting married tomorrow. I withdrew all the money from your bank accounts and sold the house. Bye! I just laughed out loud. He didn't know that the house he sold was actually. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I had spent 37 years building my life carefully, brick by brick. My name is Margaret Thornton, and at 62, I thought I had seen everything life could throw at me. I lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in suburban Ohio, worked part-time at the local library, and enjoyed my quiet routine. My son, Derek, was 34 and had always been ambitious, perhaps too ambitious. The first strange thing happened 3 months before everything fell apart. Derek called me, asking about my bank account numbers. "Mom, I need to help you set up automatic bill payments," he said, his voice smooth as honey. "You're getting older, and I don't want you to miss anything important." I hesitated, but he was my son, my only child. His father had died when Derek was 12, and I had raised him alone, working 2 jobs, sacrificing everything. Surely I could trust him with this. The second sign came 6 weeks later. Derek visited with his fiancée, Brittany. She was 26, beautiful in that sharp, calculated way that made me uneasy. They sat in my living room, and Brittany's eyes roamed over everything: the furniture, the paintings, the vintage clock on the mantel. "This house must be worth quite a bit now, Margaret," she said, not even calling me Mom or Mrs. Thornton. "Real estate in this area has really appreciated." "It's my home," I replied simply. "I'm not interested in selling." Derek laughed, squeezing her hand. "Of course not, Mom. Brittany's just making conversation." But something in his eyes made my stomach turn. Then came the banking statements. I checked my accounts online every Sunday morning with my coffee. That particular Sunday in late October, my heart stopped. My savings account, the one with $127,000 I had accumulated through decades of careful saving, through my husband's life insurance, through years of denying myself vacations and new clothes, showed a balance of $1,200. My checking account was empty except for $53. My hands shook as I called the bank. The representative, a kind young woman named Ashley, pulled up my transaction history. "Mrs. Thornton, it looks like these withdrawals were authorized through your online banking portal. The transfers were made to an account belonging to Derek Thornton. Is that your son?" I couldn't speak. I simply hung up. I sat in my kitchen for 3 hours, staring at the wall. How could he? Why would he? I had given him everything. I had sacrificed my youth, my opportunities, my relationships, and this was how he repaid me? My phone rang the next morning. Derek. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hey, Mom!" His voice was cheerful, excited even. "Great news! Tomorrow I'm getting married. Brittany and I decided not to wait. We're having a beautiful ceremony at the Riverside Country Club." My throat felt tight. "Derek, my bank accounts—" "Oh, that," he laughed, actually laughed. "Yeah, Mom, I withdrew the money. I needed it for the wedding and for our new start. Don't worry, you'll be fine with your Social Security. And here's the other thing. I sold the house. I had power of attorney from those documents you signed last year, remember? The closing was yesterday. You have 30 days to move out." The world tilted. "You sold my house?" "I got a great price, $340,000. That money's going toward our down payment on a condo in the city. Look, I have to go. Caterer's calling. We'll talk after the honeymoon. Bye, Mom." The line went dead. I sat there, phone in my hand, feeling the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. Then slowly, something else rose inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. Something that made my lips curve into a smile. I started laughing. Softly at first, then louder, until tears rolled down my cheeks. Derek had no idea what he had just done. That house he sold? The one he thought was my simple suburban home worth $340,000? He had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Because the house Derek sold wasn't the house I actually lived in. It was the rental property I had purchased 15 years ago, the one I had deliberately registered in my name for tax purposes, the one currently occupied by tenants with a lease agreement lasting another 18 months. My real home, the one I actually lived in, mortgage-free, worth nearly $600,000, was in a trust under my late husband's mother's estate name. Derek didn't even know it existed. Oh, my foolish, greedy son. What had you done? The laughter faded, leaving behind something harder, something that settled in my bones like ice. I sat at my kitchen table, my real kitchen table, and forced myself to think clearly. What had I actually lost? The rental property Derek sold would create a legal nightmare for him. The buyers would discover tenants with a valid lease. The Hendersons had lived there for 3 years and had 16 months remaining on their current contract. Derek would face lawsuits from the buyers for fraud, possibly criminal charges for selling a property he didn't have the right to sell. The power of attorney he referenced? I had never signed such a document. Never. My stolen savings hurt more. $127,000 represented my security, my freedom, my future medical care. That money was meant to ensure I never became a burden to anyone. How bitterly ironic that my own son had stolen it to avoid me being a burden to him. But here was the crucial thing Derek didn't understand. I wasn't defenseless. I wasn't some confused elderly woman who would simply accept this betrayal. I had spent decades working in legal offices before becoming a librarian. I understood contracts, property law, and fraud. More importantly, I had kept meticulous records of everything. I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out the folder labeled Rental Property, Oak Street. Inside were copies of the lease agreement with the Hendersons, proof of their security deposit, and my own deed to the property. I had never given Derek power of attorney. Whatever documents he claimed to have were either forged or obtained through deception. Next, I checked my real estate holdings file. My actual home, the one I sat in now, was titled under the Robert Thornton Family Trust, established by my late mother-in-law 20 years ago. I was the trustee and beneficiary, but the property wasn't in my personal name. Derek had grown up in this house, but apparently he had never understood the legal structure behind it. When I had purchased the rental property years later, I had deliberately kept it simple, in my own name, for tax purposes. Derek must have assumed that modest rental was my only asset. I made myself coffee and began listing what I needed to do. First, report the theft to the police. Second, contact my bank's fraud department. Third, hire a lawyer. Fourth, ensure the Hendersons were protected and informed. Fifth, gather evidence of Derek's fraud for the property sale. But as I wrote, my hand slowed. Did I want to send my own son to prison? The thought made me feel sick. Despite everything, he was still the little boy I had rocked to sleep, the teenager I had helped with homework, the young man I had been so proud of when he graduated college. Then I remembered his voice on the phone. Cheerful, casual. You'll be fine with your Social Security. As if he had done nothing wrong, as if stealing his mother's life savings and selling her supposed home was just a minor inconvenience for me to deal with. What kind of man had I raised? I thought of Brittany, with her calculating eyes and her pointed comments about property values. Had she pushed him to this? Or had Derek always been capable of such cruelty, and I had simply refused to see it? My phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor, Patricia. Maggie, saw a for sale sign go up at your rental on Oak Street yesterday, then come down this morning. Everything okay? I texted back. Long story. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? Patricia had been my friend for 15 years. She was a retired paralegal. I would need allies for what was coming. That night, I barely slept. I kept imagining Derek's face when he realized what he had done. Would he feel remorse? Would he apologize? Or would he blame me somehow? Claim I had tricked him? By morning, I had my plan. I would not go to the police immediately. Instead, I would gather every piece of evidence, document every crime, and build an irrefutable case. Then I would confront Derek with the choice: make full restitution voluntarily, or face criminal prosecution. I would give him one chance to do the right thing, one chance to prove he was still my son and not the stranger who had laughed while robbing his mother. I called the bank at 9 o'clock sharp. I need to report fraud and theft from my accounts, I told the representative, and I need a complete record of all transactions for the past 6 months. Of course, Mrs. Thornton, I'm so sorry this happened. We'll start an investigation immediately. Next, I called Martin Green, an attorney who attended my book club. Martin, I need your help. My son has stolen my savings and fraudulently sold a property I own. I need legal representation, and I need it to be confidential until I'm ready to act. There was a pause. Margaret, this is serious. How much are we talking about? $127,000 in cash theft, approximately $340,000 in fraudulent property sale proceeds. Jesus. Yes, I'll help you. Come to my office this afternoon. I hung up and looked at myself in the hallway mirror. My silver hair was neat, my blue eyes clear and determined. I looked like someone's sweet grandmother. Derek had forgotten that sweet grandmothers could also be warriors when necessary. My son wanted to get married tomorrow? Fine. Let him enjoy his wedding. Let him think he had won. I would wait, gather my strength, and then I would show him exactly what happened when you betrayed the woman who had given you everything. Martin Green's law office was located in a quiet brick building downtown. I sat across from him at his mahogany desk, my folder of documents between us. He read through everything with increasing disbelief, occasionally making notes on his legal pad. Margaret, this is worse than I thought, he said finally, removing his glasses. Your son forged documents to sell property he didn't own. That's not just civil fraud, it's criminal. He could face 5 to 10 years in prison. I know, I said quietly. But I need to understand all my options before I decide how to proceed. Martin nodded. Smart. Here's what we do first. File a fraud report with your bank to freeze any further transactions. Second, contact the title company that handled the property sale. They'll need to know the sale was fraudulent. Third, we file a police report. You can request that they investigate before pressing charges, which gives you some control over timing. What about the buyers of the property? They'll likely sue Derek for fraud once they discover the tenants. They may also sue the title company for failing to catch this. Either way, Derek will be liable for the full purchase price plus damages. Martin leaned back. Margaret, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go through with this? He's your son. I met his eyes. He stole my life savings and tried to make me homeless. What kind of son does that? We spent 2 hours preparing documents. By the time I left Martin's office, I had filed fraud claims with both my bank and the title company. The police report would be filed the next morning. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. Derek. Mom, why is the bank calling me about fraud investigation? What's going on? I took a breath, keeping my voice steady. Derek, the bank flagged the withdrawals from my account as suspicious. It's standard procedure when large sums are transferred. But I'm your son. Tell them it's fine. Is it fine, Derek? You took $127,000 without my permission. His voice changed, becoming harder. I had your permission. You gave me access to your accounts. For emergencies, not to steal everything I own. I didn't steal. I borrowed it. Brittany and I will pay you back after we're settled. He sounded defensive now, caught. And the house sale was completely legal. I had power of attorney. Derek, I never signed power of attorney papers. Silence. Then, yes, you did. Last year, remember? When you were sick with pneumonia, I brought them to the hospital. My blood ran cold. I had been sick last year, hospitalized for 4 days with severe pneumonia. I barely remembered that time. The fever, the medication, the exhaustion. Had Derek taken advantage of my illness to get me to sign documents I didn't understand? I need to see those papers, I said. Mom, stop being difficult. Everything's legal. Just call the bank and tell them to drop the investigation. His voice turned pleading. Please, the wedding is tomorrow. I don't want this stress. You should have thought of that before you robbed your mother. I hung up before he could respond. That evening, Patricia came over with wine and sympathy. I told her everything, watching her face shift from shock to anger. That bastard, she said. Maggie, you know I'm here for whatever you need. Character witness, research, anything. Thank you, I said, feeling the weight of true friendship. Actually, I do need something. Can you help me contact the Hendersons? They need to know what's happening with the rental property. We called them together. Tom Henderson answered, his voice concerned. Mrs. Thornton, is everything all right? I explained the situation as gently as I could. There was a long silence. So your son sold the house we're living in without telling you or us? Tom's voice was incredulous. What happens to our lease? Your lease is still valid, I assured him. I'm working with my attorney to sort this out. You're protected. But I wanted you to know in case the buyers try to contact you. Jesus, thank you for telling us. Let us know if you need anything. Statements, testimony, whatever. After we hung up, Patricia poured us both more wine. Derek has no idea what's coming, does he? No, I said. He thinks I'm just a confused old woman he can manipulate. The next morning, I received an email from the title company. My hands shook as I read it. Mrs. Thornton, our investigation has revealed serious irregularities with the sale of 1247 Oak Street. The power of attorney document submitted by Derek Thornton appears to contain your signature, but the notary seal is from a notary whose license was expired at the time. Additionally, the document is dated during your hospitalization, but our records show the notary was in a different state that day. We are treating this as potential forgery and fraud. We have frozen all funds from the sale pending investigation. The buyers have been notified and are pursuing legal action against Mr. Thornton. I forwarded the email to Martin Green with a single line. He forged everything. This was the proof I needed. Derek hadn't just been reckless or morally questionable. He had committed calculated fraud. He had brought false documents to my hospital bed, perhaps getting me to sign blank papers in my delirium, then had them fraudulently notarized later. My phone buzzed. Another text from Derek. Mom, we need to talk. Can you come to the wedding tomorrow? Please? I want you there. I stared at the message. He wanted me at his wedding. The wedding he was paying for with my stolen money. The wedding he was having while I dealt with the chaos of his crimes. I typed back, I'll be there. Let him think everything was fine. Let him marry his calculating bride, celebrate with my stolen money, believe he had gotten away with it. I would smile, take photos, play the proud mother. And then, when he least expected it, I would show him the consequences of betraying the woman who gave him life. The wedding was exactly what I expected. Expensive, showy, and utterly devoid of genuine warmth. The Riverside Country Club glittered with white roses and crystal chandeliers. I wore my best dress, navy blue, elegant, understated, and arrived early. Brittany looked stunning in a designer gown that probably cost $10,000. My $10,000. Derek stood beside her in his tuxedo, beaming like he didn't have a care in the world. When he saw me, he rushed over. "Mom, you came?" He hugged me tightly. "I'm so glad you're here. I know things have been weird, but this is a fresh start for all of us." I pulled back, studying his face. Did he really believe that? Did he think stealing from me was just weird and not criminal? "Congratulations, Derek," I said evenly. "You look very happy." Brittany joined us, her smile sharp. "Margaret, so nice of you to come. Derek was worried you'd be upset about, well, the money and the house. But it's all for the best, really. You don't need that big house anymore, and Derek and I can build our future." "How thoughtful," I replied, my tone pleasant, but my eyes cold. The ceremony was brief. I sat in the front row, watching my son promise to love and cherish this woman who had helped him betray his own mother. During the reception, I made polite conversation, drank champagne I didn't taste, and took photos I would never want to see again. Then, just as they cut the cake, my phone buzzed. A text from Martin Green. "Police investigation opened. Fraud charges being prepared." Move forward? I looked at Derek, laughing with his groomsmen, completely oblivious. Not yet, I thought. Let him enjoy this moment. It would be his last happy one for a long time. The confrontation came 3 days later. Derek and Brittany appeared at my door, unannounced. Derek looked furious. Brittany's expression was icy calculation. "What the hell did you do?" Derek demanded, pushing past me into my living room. "The title company froze the money from the house sale. They're saying the power of attorney was forged. They're threatening to press charges." I closed the door calmly. "Perhaps because it was forged." "You signed those papers." I signed blank papers while delirious with fever, not knowing what they were. "You took advantage of your sick mother." I kept my voice steady. "You also had them notarized fraudulently." Brittany stepped forward. "This is ridiculous. Derek was helping you. You're old, Margaret. You can't manage your finances or your property anymore. We were doing you a favor by stealing my life savings. It's not stealing if you're too senile to manage it yourself." Her mask slipped, revealing the cold opportunist beneath. "Derek is your son. Everything you have should go to him eventually anyway. We just needed it now." "I see," I said quietly. "So this was your plan all along. Find a man with a wealthy parent, manipulate him into stealing from her, then build your life on her money." Derek's face flushed. "Don't talk about Brittany like that. She loves me." "She loves your inheritance," I corrected. "Or what she thought was your inheritance." Brittany laughed, harsh and ugly. "You think you're so smart? You're going to drop these accusations or we'll make your life hell. We'll tell everyone you have dementia. We'll have you declared incompetent. We'll put you in a nursing home." I felt ice spread through my veins. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," Derek said, his voice low and threatening. "Mom, I'm trying to be nice here. Just tell the bank and the title company that you made a mistake. Tell them you authorized everything, then we can all move on. And if I don't?" Derek stepped closer, looming over me. "Then you'll find out just how difficult your life can become. We have lawyers too. We'll tie you up in court for years. We'll drain whatever money you have left in legal fees. We'll make sure everyone knows you're a confused old woman who can't remember what she signed." For a moment, I felt genuine fear. Not of their threats, I had evidence on my side, but of what my son had become. This angry, threatening man was a stranger wearing Derek's face. But I had not survived 37 years alone by being weak. "Get out of my house," I said, my voice like steel. "Both of you, now." "Mom, get out!" The force of my voice surprised even me. "You have 5 seconds before I call the police. 1, 2. They left, Brittany spitting curses, Derek's face twisted with rage. As their car pulled away, I sat down heavily on my couch, my hands shaking. The mask was off. Now I knew exactly who I was dealing with. I called Martin the next morning. File the police report, press full charges. I want them prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Are you sure? Completely. For the next few days, I did nothing but rest. I read books, tended my garden, had lunch with Patricia. I needed to recover my strength, both physical and emotional. The confrontation had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. But as I watered my roses, feeling the warm sun on my face, I felt something else growing inside me. Cold, absolute determination. Derek and Brittany had made their choice. Now they would live with the consequences. A week after our confrontation, Derek called. His voice was different, softer, almost childlike, the voice he used to use when he was young and wanted something. "Mom, can we talk? Please?" I considered hanging up. Instead, I said, "I'm listening. I've been thinking a lot, about everything, about what I did." He paused, and I heard a genuine emotion in his voice. Or was it just good acting? "I was wrong, Mom. I see that now. I let Brittany get in my head. I let the stress of wedding planning make me crazy. But you're my mother. I should never have—" His voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Mom. Please, can we fix this?" Part of me, the part that remembered rocking him as a baby, teaching him to ride a bike, cheering at his graduations, wanted to believe him, wanted to forgive him immediately, to make everything right again. But I had learned my lesson about blind trust. "What exactly are you proposing, Derek?" "I'll return the money, all of it. Brittany and I will take out a loan if we have to, and the house thing, I'll fix it. I'll make sure the buyers don't sue. I'll handle everything." He was speaking quickly now, urgently. "Just please, please drop the police investigation. I can't have a criminal record, Mom. It'll ruin my career, my whole life. You should have considered that before you committed fraud." I know, and I'm sorry. But please, give me a chance to make this right. Don't destroy my life over one mistake." One mistake? As if robbing your mother was equivalent to forgetting her birthday. "How long will it take you to return the money?" I asked. Maybe 6 months? A year at most? We need time to get a loan to—" "Derek, you don't have 6 months. The investigation is already underway." His voice changed again, becoming desperate. "Then what do you want? Just tell me what you want." What I wanted was my son back. The real Derek, the one who had existed before Brittany, before greed had poisoned him. But that person might never have existed at all. "I want full restitution within 30 days, I said. "Every dollar you took, plus interest. I want a written confession of what you did. I want you to face the consequences of your actions." "That's impossible. We can't get that kind of money in 30 days. "Then you should have thought of that before you stole it." "God, you're heartless." The desperation turned to anger. "I'm your son, your only child. How can you do this to me?" "How could you do what you did to me?" I replied quietly. "Goodbye, Derek." I hung up and turned off my phone. That afternoon, Brittany came alone. I watched from my window as she got out of her car, dressed impeccably in a cream-colored suit. She rang the doorbell 3 times before I answered. "Margaret, we need to talk, woman to woman." Her smile was strained, but trying to be warm. "Can I come in?" "No." She blinked, surprised. "I'm trying to make peace here." "Make it from the porch." Her jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. "Look, I know you think I'm some gold digger who manipulated your son. But I love Derek. I really do. And I'm trying to save him from this disaster. By convincing me to drop the charges, by making you see reason. Her mask slipped slightly. Do you understand what criminal charges will do to him, to his career, to our future? Yes, I said. That's exactly why they need to be filed. Brittany stared at me, then laughed. A cold, bitter sound. You know what? Derek was right about you. You're a selfish old woman who can't stand to see her son happy. You're so bitter and alone that you want to drag him down with you. Are you finished? You'll regret this, she hissed. When Derek is in prison, when your relationship is destroyed forever, you'll realize you chose money over your own son. You'll die alone, and it'll be your own fault. Goodbye, Brittany. I closed the door on her enraged face. That evening, Patricia came over with her husband, Michael, and 2 other couples from our book club, the Johnsons and the Reeves. They brought food, wine, and something more valuable, solidarity. We heard what's happening, Patricia said, giving me a long hug. We wanted you to know you're not alone. We sat in my living room, and I told them everything. Not just the facts, but the pain, the betrayal, the guilt of prosecuting my own son. They listened without judgment. You're doing the right thing, Michael said firmly. What Derek did was criminal. If you let him get away with it, you're telling him he can betray anyone without consequences. Carol Johnson nodded. My brother stole from our mother. She forgave him, didn't press charges. He did it again 5 years later. Some people only learn through consequences. Their support wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't heartless. I was a woman protecting herself from someone who had proven he couldn't be trusted, even if that someone was my son. As they left that night, Patricia squeezed my hand. Stay strong, Maggie. You're doing the hard thing, but it's the right thing. I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. Cold, hard peace. Derek and Brittany had tried manipulation, threats, and guilt. None of it worked. Because I had something they didn't understand. Principles, self-respect, and friends who reminded me of my worth. The next morning, I called Martin Green. No deals, no compromises. We proceed with full prosecution. Understood, he said. Margaret, for what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. Brave or broken, I wasn't sure which, but I knew I wouldn't back down. They came together this time, on a Sunday morning when the neighborhood was quiet. I saw them through my window, Derek and Brittany walking up my driveway with careful, measured steps. Derek carried flowers. Brittany had a bakery box, peace offerings. I almost didn't answer the door. But curiosity won. What new strategy had they devised? Mom. Derek's voice was gentle, his eyes red-rimmed as if he'd been crying. Please, just give us 5 minutes. That's all we're asking. Against my better judgment, I let them in. We sat in my living room, them on the couch, me in my armchair, keeping distance between us. Derek set the flowers on the coffee table. Daisies. My favorite. Of course he remembered. Mom, we were wrong, Derek began. About everything, the way we talked to you, the things we said. It was unforgivable. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. These past 2 weeks, I haven't been sleeping. I keep thinking about what I did, about how I hurt you. You're my mother. You raised me alone, gave me everything, and I repaid you with betrayal. It was exactly what I had wanted to hear. So why did it feel like a performance? Brittany spoke next, her voice subdued. Margaret, I owe you an apology too. I was terrible to you. I said cruel things. The truth is, I was scared. She looked down at her hands. My own parents are poor. I grew up with nothing. When I met Derek, I saw a chance at a better life, and I pushed too hard. I pushed him to do things he shouldn't have done. Things you convinced him to do? I asked quietly. Yes, she admitted, meeting my eyes. It was my idea. The money, the house. Derek didn't want to do it. I persuaded him, told him you wouldn't miss it, that you'd want him to be happy. Her voice cracked. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Derek reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. Mom, we want to make this right. We're willing to do whatever it takes. We've already taken out a second mortgage on the condo we bought. We can give you $100,000 within 2 weeks. The rest, it'll take time, but we'll pay every penny back. With interest, Brittany added quickly. Whatever you think is fair. And the criminal charges? I asked. Derek's face fell. That's the thing, Mom. If I have a criminal record, I'll lose my job. I work in finance. They'll fire me immediately. And then how can I pay you back? How can I support a family? He squeezed my hand. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. But I'm begging you to give me a chance to fix this without destroying my entire future. Please, Margaret, Brittany said. We want to have children. Derek wants to give you grandchildren, but he can't do that from prison. Grandchildren. The word hit me like a physical blow. I had dreamed of being a grandmother, of holding Derek's babies, of passing on our family history. They knew exactly where to strike. Think about it, Derek pressed. Do you really want your grandchildren to visit their father in prison? Do you want them to grow up knowing their grandmother put their father behind bars? I studied them both. The performance was good. Derek's tears seemed genuine. Brittany's remorse looked real. They had clearly rehearsed this carefully, but I noticed small things. The way Brittany's eyes kept flicking to her watch. The way Derek's grip on my hand tightened when I didn't immediately respond. The tension in their shoulders coiled like springs. What happens if I say no? I asked softly. The change was instant. Derek's expression hardened. Brittany sat back, arms crossed. Then you're choosing to destroy your son, Derek said flatly. And for what? Money you don't even need? You have your precious house, your comfortable life. You're taking away mine out of spite. It's not spite, it's justice. Justice? Brittany laughed harshly. You want to talk about justice? What about fairness? Derek is your only child. Everything you have will go to him when you die anyway. We just needed it earlier. That's all. So you're saying I should have died sooner? Made things more convenient for you? Don't twist my words, Brittany snapped. I'm saying you're a vindictive old bitch who can't stand seeing her son happy with someone who isn't you. Derek didn't defend me. He just watched, waiting to see if this approach would work where kindness had failed. I stood up slowly. Get out. Mom, get out! My voice shook with rage. You come into my home with your fake tears and your manipulations, trying to guilt me into letting you rob me without consequences. You think I don't see what you're doing? Derek stood, his face flushing with anger. You're going to regret this. When I'm sitting in a prison cell, when Brittany leaves me because I can't provide for her, when you're alone on every holiday for the rest of your life, remember that you chose this. I didn't choose this, I said coldly. You did. The day you decided to steal from your mother. Brittany grabbed Derek's arm. Let's go. She's not worth it. Let her rot alone in this house with her precious money. They stormed out, slamming the door behind them. I stood in my living room trembling. Not from fear, from fury. They had tried everything. Apologies, manipulation, guilt, threats. They had offered me grandchildren like a bargaining chip, as if I would sacrifice my self-respect for hypothetical babies. But beneath the anger, I felt something else. A small, cold thread of fear. What if Derek was right? What if I was destroying him? What if years from now I would regret this choice? No. I pushed the thoughts away. I had seen behind their masks today. I had seen the calculation, the manipulation, the complete lack of genuine remorse. They weren't sorry they had hurt me. They were sorry they had been caught. I picked up the daisies Derek had brought and threw them in the trash. Then I called Martin Green. They just tried to manipulate me into dropping the charges, I told him. They offered partial restitution in exchange for no prosecution. What did you tell them? I told them to get out of my house. There was a pause, then Martin's warm chuckle. Good for you, Margaret. That took real strength. Strength. Was that what this was? Or was it stubbornness? Pride? Vengeance? I didn't know anymore, but I knew I couldn't back down now, not when they had shown me so clearly who they really were. That night, I lay awake, Derek's words echoing in my mind. You're going to regret this. Maybe I would, but I would regret betraying myself even more. The court date arrived 6 weeks later. Martin had prepared me for everything. The process, the questions, the likelihood of Derek accepting a plea deal. But Derek, stubborn and delusional, had refused. He insisted on fighting the charges, convinced that a jury would side with a son over his vindictive mother. I wore a simple gray suit and minimal makeup. Martin had advised me to look sympathetic but strong. You're not a victim, he said. You're a survivor. The courthouse was cold, fluorescent lights reflecting off polished floors. I sat behind the prosecution table, my hands folded calmly in my lap. Derek sat across the aisle with Brittany and his lawyer, a sharp-suited man named Richard Chen, who specialized in white-collar defense. When Derek's eyes met mine, I saw something I hadn't expected. Genuine fear. Good. He was beginning to understand that this was real. The prosecutor, a stern woman named Andrea Walsh, had built an overwhelming case. Bank records showing the unauthorized transfers, testimony from the title company about the forged power of attorney, expert analysis of the fraudulent notarization, the Hendersons' testimony about the illegal property sale. Derek's defense strategy became clear quickly. Paint me as confused and vindictive, claim he had acted with my permission, and suggest that I was now simply having regrets about helping my son. Chen stood for his opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about family, misunderstanding, and buyer's remorse. Margaret Thornton gave her son Derek access to her accounts and authorized him to handle her property affairs. Why? Because she's 62 years old, living alone, and needed help managing her finances. Derek didn't steal from his mother. He acted with her blessing. But now, influenced by outside parties and suffering from what will demonstrate is age-related confusion, Mrs. Thornton has rewritten history to portray herself as a victim. I felt rage simmer in my chest but kept my expression neutral. The trial proceeded methodically. Andrea called witness after witness, building her case brick by brick. The bank representative testified that I had called immediately upon discovering the missing funds, distraught and confused. The title company representative explained the fraudulent documents. The handwriting expert showed how my signature on the power of attorney papers didn't match my normal signature. It was shaky, uncertain, consistent with someone signing under duress or while seriously ill. Then came my testimony. I took the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Andrea guided me through my story gently but firmly. I explained my relationship with Derek, my pride in raising him alone, my devastation at discovering his betrayal. Mrs. Thornton, Andrea asked, did you give Derek permission to withdraw $127,000 from your savings account? No, I said clearly. Never. Did you give him permission to sell your rental property? No. That property generates income that supplements my retirement. I would never authorize its sale. Did you sign power of attorney papers giving Derek control over your finances? Not knowingly. I was hospitalized with severe pneumonia. My fever reached 104 degrees. Derek brought papers to my hospital bed. told me they were insurance forms. I was barely conscious. I don't remember signing anything. Chen cross-examined me aggressively, trying to paint me as vengeful and confused. But I had prepared for this. I remained calm, answered every question directly, and never lost my composure. Isn't it true, Mrs. Thornton, that you resent Derek's marriage to Brittany? No, I resent Derek stealing my life savings. You've had arguments about his relationship, haven't you? We've had discussions, but this isn't about his choice of wife. This is about theft and fraud. You're a lonely woman, aren't you? Living alone? No close family besides Derek? I'm content with my life, Mr. Chen. Being independent doesn't make me vindictive. Chen tried several more angles, but nothing stuck. I had truth on my side. Then Derek took the stand. Chen walked him through his version of events. How worried he'd been about me, how I'd asked him to help with finances, how I'd been so happy to help with his wedding. Derek's performance was polished, sympathetic. Then Andrea stood for cross-examination, and everything fell apart. Mr. Thornton, you testified that your mother asked you to help manage her finances. When exactly did she make this request? Derek hesitated. It was ongoing, over several months. Can you provide any documentation of this arrangement? Emails, texts, letters? It was verbal. I see. And the power of attorney papers. You said she signed them willingly in the hospital? Yes, but the notary whose seal appears on those documents was in California that day. The hospital is in Ohio. How did that notary witness your mother's signature? Derek's face paled. I don't know. Maybe there's a mistake in the records. A mistake? Andrea's voice was sharp. Or did you forge the notarization after obtaining your mother's signature under false pretenses? I didn't forge anything. Mr. Thornton, let's talk about the property sale. Did you inform the buyers that the house had tenants with an active lease? I thought they'd been notified. By whom? The real estate agent should have. Should have? You were representing yourself as the property owner with full authority to sell. Didn't you have a responsibility to disclose all material facts? Derek was stammering now, contradicting himself, his polished story crumbling under direct questioning. In the gallery, I saw Brittany's face go white. Andrea pressed harder. The truth is, Mr. Thornton, you knew exactly what you were doing. You forged documents, sold property you didn't own, stole your mother's savings, and you did it all for one reason: to fund your wedding and your new life. Isn't that true? No, I was helping my mother. She wanted to be robbed? She wanted to be homeless? Objection. Chen was on his feet. Argumentative. Sustained, the judge said, but the damage was done. The jury had seen Derek panic, seen him contradict himself, seen him exposed as a liar. When closing arguments ended, I felt a strange calm. It was over. Not the trial itself, the jury would deliberate, but my part in this nightmare. I had told the truth, provided evidence, and refused to be manipulated. Whatever happened next was out of my hands. We stood as the jury filed out to deliberate. Derek turned to look at me one last time. His eyes were hollow, defeated. I held his gaze steadily. This was the son I had raised, and this was the reckoning he had earned. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, their faces were solemn but certain. On the count of grand theft, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. On the count of fraud, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. On the count of forgery, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. Derek's face crumbled. Brittany let out a choked sob. I sat perfectly still, feeling the weight of that single word echo through the courtroom. Guilty. 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 The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Derek was released on bail, but the reality had set in. He would go to prison. His life, as he knew it, was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Martin had warned me they would be there. The case had attracted local media attention. Elderly mother prosecutes son for theft, made for compelling headlines. Mrs. Thornton, how do you feel about the verdict? A reporter called out. I stopped, considered, then spoke clearly. I feel that justice has been served. What my son did was criminal. He betrayed the person who loved him most, and he must face the consequences of that choice. Do you have any message for other families dealing with financial elder abuse? Yes. You are not obligated to protect people who harm you, even if they're family, especially if they're family. Love without boundaries is not love, it's enabling. Martin guided me to his car and we drove away from the chaos. The sentencing hearing was brutal to witness. The judge, a silver-haired woman named Margaret Hendricks, listened to impact statements from both sides. The Hendersons described the stress and fear of nearly losing their home. The buyers of the property described the financial nightmare Derek had created. I described the betrayal, the violation of trust, the emotional devastation. Then Derek's attorney presented his plea for leniency. Derek himself stood, his voice shaking, and apologized. This time, his tears seemed real. Your Honor, I know I can never undo what I did. I betrayed my mother, the woman who sacrificed everything for me. I let greed and poor judgment destroy our relationship. I understand I must face punishment. I only ask for mercy, for a chance to eventually rebuild my life and somehow, someday, make amends. Judge Hendricks looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Mr. Thornton, you didn't make a mistake. You made a series of calculated choices. You forged documents. You exploited your mother's illness. You committed fraud against multiple parties. These weren't crimes of passion or desperation. They were crimes of entitlement and greed. She paused. You showed no remorse until you were caught. You threatened your mother when she sought justice. You deserve no leniency. She sentenced him to 7 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 4. Additionally, full restitution to me and the property buyers, plus court costs and penalties. The total came to over $200,000. Derek collapsed into his chair, sobbing. Brittany sat frozen, her face a mask of horror. As the bailiff led Derek away in handcuffs, he looked at me one last time. I met his eyes but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. After the sentencing, Martin and I met in his office to discuss the restitution order. The court has frozen Derek and Brittany's assets, he explained. The condo they bought will be sold. Their bank accounts will be seized. They'll be paying you back for years, possibly decades. What about Brittany? I asked. She wasn't charged criminally since Derek took the lead role, but she's liable for the restitution as his spouse. Her wages can be garnished, her assets seized. She'll be paying for his crimes alongside him. I thought about the woman who had called me a vindictive old bitch, who had tried to manipulate me with promises of grandchildren. Justice, it seemed, had its own plans for her. Over the following weeks, the consequences cascaded. Derek lost his job in finance. No firm would employ a convicted felon. Brittany's social media, once full of wedding photos and inspirational quotes, went dark. Friends and colleagues distanced themselves. Their condo was sold at a loss in a foreclosure sale. I received the first restitution payment, $15,000 from the condo sale. It would take years to recover the full amount, but the system was working. The Hendersons sent me a card. Thank you for having the courage to stand up for what's right. You saved our home and taught our children an important lesson about justice. Patricia threw a small dinner party to celebrate the trial's conclusion. Our book club friends toasted my strength, my resilience, my refusal to be victimized. You did something remarkable, Maggie, Michael said. Most people would have backed down, but you stood firm. I had no choice, I replied. He gave me no choice. But even as I celebrated this victory, I felt the hollowness of it. I had won in court, but I had lost my son. The little boy I had raised no longer existed, replaced by this stranger who valued money over everything. Still, I had my self-respect. I had my home, my friends, my future secured. And I had sent a message that would echo far beyond this courtroom. Mothers deserve respect. Elderly people deserve protection. And crimes against family are still crimes. Derek would have 7 years in prison to think about what he'd lost. I hoped, somewhere in that time, he would find genuine remorse. Not the performative kind he'd shown in court, but real understanding of what he'd done. But whether he found it or not, I had found something more valuable. Myself, my strength, my worth, and no one could steal that from me. 6 months after Derek's sentencing, my life blossomed unexpectedly. I started a consulting business, helping elderly people protect themselves from financial abuse. Patricia joined me, and we hosted workshops at community centers. Every person I helped felt like redemption. My pain had purpose. I traveled to Ireland and Canada, reconnected with old friends, and on my 63rd birthday, Patricia threw a surprise party. Looking at the warm faces surrounding me, I realized Derek had been wrong. I wasn't alone. I had community, purpose, and genuine happiness. Meanwhile, Derek's world collapsed. Prison was brutal. He was attacked twice, developed depression, and struggled with anxiety. Brittany divorced him after 8 months, claiming she was his victim too. She moved back with her parents, working 2 retail jobs to pay restitution. Her social media disappeared. No one wanted to date the woman who robbed an elderly mother. Derek's finance career was destroyed. His employer sued him. His certifications were revoked. Friends abandoned him. His parole was denied. No job prospects, no support letters, no evidence of rehabilitation. He would serve the full 7 years. I had chosen myself, and paradoxically, that choice led to the richest period of my life. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Looking back now, I understand what happened. I had loved Derek so completely that I forgot to teach him to love me back. I had given without boundaries, sacrificed without limits, and in doing so, I had raised someone who believed he was entitled to take. The greatest lesson I learned? Love without respect is worthless. Family without integrity is meaningless. And sometimes the most painful choice is also the right one. My son is in prison because he committed crimes, not because I'm vindictive, but because he chose greed over love. I didn't destroy his life. He did that himself. What would you do if your child betrayed you this way? Would you have the strength to choose justice over guilt? Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there recognize the warning signs, set healthy boundaries, and remember that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. My son called me. I'm getting married tomorrow.